Hey, welcome back to the Positive Side Podcast. The host, Jeremy Todd. Glad you're tuning in. This is a special episode again, like we always. I think they're all special, right? I mean, what the hell? I don't want to downgrade one episode versus the other episode. They're all great. Real quick before we get started, I'm gonna bring my guest on here in just a minute. But man, exciting news. I haven't really talked about it too much. I haven't gone on the Facebook page yet, but hey, you can pre-order my book, which I'm really, really excited about. The positive side, and really what the book talks about is, my struggles as getting bullied as a kid. To filing bankruptcy, to my bad attitude, and really all the things I've done to come out of that. And on the other side, and really now we're to the point where, life is pretty good and we're helping people. And the whole point of the book was just to encourage people that are going through tough times to understand that there is a positive side to that. And there's no better time to get out of it now. So, hey, if you want to run over to the positivesidepodcast.com or jeremytodd.com, you can run over there, pre-order the book. It's $10. It's cheap. I'm encouraging people to buy two. If you buy two, keep one, give one away, because there's always someone in your life that's that may need a little boost up, and that's what this book is all about. So if it, try and buy two. $10, come on, hook it up. My goal is to sell 1,000 books. The book's going to actually be out on December 15-ish through Amazon, but like I said, all the pre-orders are going to get an autographed copy, so make sure you do that. And for everybody watching this for the first time, hopefully it's not the last time, but subscribe to the Positive Side Facebook page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And make sure you run over to iTunes, and that's about the best place to find the Positive Side Podcast. But I'm on Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Today's guest, it was interesting. A few weeks ago, we did Andrew Gritzmaker, and Andrew's a personal friend of mine. And I said, Andrew, who do you know that I know? And a lot of times those connections kind of fade away. I don't really get to hook up with a lot of those people. But today's guest, David Buuck, I did. David Buuck's got a special program going here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but I wanted to make sure that his message got out around the world because it's so unique and so important to me. Now, a lot of listeners don't know, I have a sister that has Down syndrome. She is she was born in 1990s. What is that? She's 30. And man, just time flies. But when people are helping people out, especially, and David will explain a little bit better than I would, but especially, for people that have, special needs, it's a group of people that, they're not going anywhere. They need help, and we need people like David Buuck. So, David, hey, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeremy.
It's my pleasure. David is the founder and executive director of CassHousing. The mission of CassHousing is to create and maintain customizable, affordable, sustainable, and safe living arrangements for individuals with intellectual and or developmental disabilities that promote independent living skills. Now, I met David, what's it been, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago,
yeah.
Something like that, yeah. And I got the tour of what David's doing and building these houses. And I got to meet a couple people that were in them. And man, I was just blown away, bro. I mean, I don't get blown away very often. And yeah, and just the uniqueness of the program. So tell the listeners, I guess, number one, why did you start CassHousing? Sure. And then talk a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Yeah. So Cass was really started as I got to know more about the Medicaid waiver program through the state of Indiana. So what is all that? So the Medicaid waiver is a program that pays for services for folks with intellectual or developmental disabilities like autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, things like that. And so the state of Indiana changed how they do funding for people with disabilities back in 2012. So before then, if you had a child with, again, autism, Downs, a traumatic brain injury, if you'd adopt a child with fetal alcohol syndrome, you would be on a waiting list for about 10 years. And during that time, you receive no support. But once your child's name was pulled, they'd have the funding to move into a Medicaid waiver home. And there's differences between group homes and waiver homes, and that's just a whole nother discussion for another day. Similar, but different. One family that I got to know waited 27 years. They checked in at 10 years. The state said, we don't have any of your paperwork, get back in line. They waited another 17 years after that. So in 2012, the state changed the structure of the program. And now the waiting list is between 8 and 16 months, which sounds a whole lot more reasonable. It's a smaller block grant of funding to help pay for like earlier therapies, help in the home, kind of respite opportunities for the families. You need this larger block grant to move into a 24/7 home. So the question is how do you move from the smaller funding to the larger funding? Both biological parents need to turn 80. Both parents need to die, or the child has to have significant medical or behavioral issues. And I had a gentleman bite through his mother's arm, and that was not deemed significant enough.
Jeez, Pete.
So in Indiana today, if you've got a child with autism, Downs, anything like that, I said, they're living at home until you're 80 or dead. And, there are a few exceptions, but for the vast majority of families, that's it. And so I was working for a local Medicaid waiver provider called Bethesda Lutheran Communities here in town. It's a similar program to like Easter Seals ARC, AWS Benchmark, kind of names that folks may be familiar with in town. And all these families were saying, what options do we have? And it's like, you don't have any. And back in January 2015, a mom approached me and they were kind of going through a crisis situation. And she said, no, really, what options do we have? And I said, well, I've got this idea. And that is what started Cass, was in the back room of Friendly Fox, over a cup of coffee. And, fast forward to today, we're, 5.5 years old. We're in the middle of construction on houses 3 and 4. Houses 5 and 6 may start by the end of the year. We've got an interest list of about 200 families here in town. Things are moving in the right direction.
When you talk about, I mean, because it's obviously not going to be a super lucrative opportunity for you. And I always wonder, and I think about this a lot, like it takes a certain individual to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and start this program for these families. Tell a little bit about, because I know you mentioned to me a little bit about your family and what kind of, what was the inspiration behind it? Because, again, most people are just going to quit their job and go start this program. And I know obviously you had a lot of, I'm sure you had pushback from family. I'm sure you had pushback from a lot of other people, but you were so driven. And now look what you're at. I mean, now you're changing lives. And
Sure.
So talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the whole program.
Yeah. So, my wife and I, so we got married in 2010, and we actually moved into a residential community for adults with disabilities in LaPorte, Indiana, called Share Foundation. And so we moved in with 2 guys with Down syndrome, Ron and Gary. And, we talk about those guys every single day. For the last decade, Ron and Gary have been in our hearts since then. And it's always been, Share is kind of a unique spot, and it's not, it's not a perfect fit for everybody, but that really changed us. And so it was always kind of this, hey, how do we start something similar or like Share? And so Amy and I, my wife and I, had very influential grandparents. And so we talk about legacy a lot, and not the legacy of, oh, look what I've done, but you only get one shot at this life, man. And, we did not want, at no point do we want to look back and say, I had a shot and I didn't do it. And so you can't live with regrets. And so as we got to know more and more of these families, it was, we said, what's the worst thing that can happen? And we said, well, I mean, we could run out of money. And the thing was, we had already done that twice in our marriage.
I know, believe me, I know.
Yeah, and it's like, well, yeah, that sucks. But if that's the worst thing that can happen, all right, well, but what's the best thing that can happen? And it's, if this thing works, it could change the lives of hundreds or thousands of people nationwide. And, if that's the best worst case scenario, it's like, we got to give it a shot. So, I quit my job. I didn't receive a salary for 2.5 years, and kind of bootstrapped it for that time. But, it has always been driven by, if this thing doesn't work out for these families, there's nothing. It's not even a matter of cost. There's nothing in this area. And so that's just been the inspiration the entire time, is, these families, they don't have time, right? They don't, yeah. If you're a single mom with a child with Down syndrome or autism, you're doing your job, you're coming home, you're a caregiver, like, you don't have time to create something new. You're just trying to get through the day to day. And, I have the time, and it's like, if I've got the time and I can be an advocate for these families, I've got to.
Yeah. And obviously it's changing lives. There's no question about it. Something that popped in my head when you were talking was something along the lines, I know I'm going to butcher this quote, but like some of the, it's like the greatest ideas in the world are, or the biggest concentration of the greatest ideas in the world is in a cemetery, because people never take advantage of those opportunities. They never go for the goals and dreams, never take that risk. And that's what you
Sure.
did. And then I always get into talking to people about, hey, when you go for your goals and dreams, you have to identify what your why is.
Mm.
Your why is obviously extremely powerful. I mean, if you don't, like you said, if you did not do this, and now looking back, the lives that you've already changed, where would their lives be now?
Right.
Versus if you didn't start this program. And it's amazing to me. And another reason I wanted you to have you on the show, because I think this program needs to be expanded across the country, across the world. It's so unique. So take people through the different types of houses that you had,
Yeah.
because you allowed me to tour one of them. And
Yeah.
again, I met, I forget the young man's name, but
Cameron. Yeah.
Cameron. I mean, Cameron's the best. I mean, he was so
Yeah.
proud and so happy. And it was just, it was a different dude, because I guarantee you, if we take Cameron back in time to wherever he was before, he is completely different where he is now than where he was. Personality, confidence, I mean, being able to survive on his own and make decisions, man, it just catapults him for a longer life of more successes. So talk a little bit about the houses. And before I want to make sure we talk about, because I asked you when we were out there, how it's all paid for.
Yeah.
Because that was super, super important to me. So talk about the houses and then talk about how it's paid for.
Yeah. So one quick story in there, one of the joys of my life is, so we live next door to the guys, and we'll talk about the structure here in a second, but the joy that I get is when I hear the guys just being goofballs next door, and one guy's farting and I can hear it through 3 different doors, and I can hear one guy calling each other names that should not be repeated on the podcast. And and I just think of if they weren't here, if they didn't have their own place, where would they be at? And they'd be at their parents' house, in their room, on their phone, in their in their bedroom, by themselves. And it's so the whole idea was, how do you create a safe space for them to be with friends? And that really was it. So we've got 3 different housing models. Our independent living model is for folks that are able to really manage day-to-day life. That's the first model house. And in independent living, there is a steward that lives on site and is really kind of a safe neighbor, a safe point of contact. My wife and I and our 3 kids were the stewards of the first house. So again, I can kind of share a lot of those firsthand stories. The house is really structured like a duplex. So there's one front door. We live on the left side of the house, and then on the right side, there's a common area. So there's a shared kitchen, kind of a living room space, shared laundry room, and then there's the 3 suites. And one of the big things that we wanted to kind of create was a true, almost like an apartment setting. But we worked very closely with the city to get it classified, the home, as a single family home as opposed to multifamily, so that we didn't have to go through a rezoning process or needing to buy commercial land. And so one of the big things was that we could only have 2 stoves in the house. And so there's a stove over for the steward side, and then there's the stove in the common area. But the 3 suites, you've got kind of a personal living room, a kitchenette, a bedroom, and then an ensuite bathroom. So it's essentially like a 500 square foot apartment within kind of the greater, the larger portion of the house.
Real quick, when Cameron showed me around, he wasn't showing me the whole place. He was showing me his apartment.
Yeah.
He was so proud of it. I mean, he's like, this is where my kitchenette is. This is where my bathroom. This is my bed. This is my TV. This is where I keep. I mean, and this is my refrigerator. He had all of his own stuff, and that was his place. We weren't going into any other places, because that's what I thought was so unique. It wasn't like, hey, go to your room. He didn't just have a bedroom. He's got everything just like a little apartment, and then you've got the support of 2 of his buddies, and then you guys right next door. And it was just so unique and so beautiful. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but continue, please.
No. It's as we've talked with different national organizations, no one nationally is doing that structure and that layout. It is, they're either looking at a 20 unit or a 200 unit apartment complex, But this is just kind of a unique setup, and we hope that, it's not just for folks with intellectual disabilities, but we're hoping other service organizations, whether it's senior living or folks with mental illness or physical disabilities, that could really replicate that housing model. Because even though Fort Wayne, in theory, is one of the most affordable places to live, there's a lot of people struggling with affordable housing. And so we just hope that other places can kind of replicate what we've done with their different missions.
Sure. Okay. So that's one house, and then you said two other ones, right?
Yeah. So then family living is for folks that need daily assistance, and the steward lives in home and lives much more like a stay-at-home parent, and that's their role as a caregiver. So again, independent living is more of a safe neighbor. Family living, you are living life together as a family. And again, the steward can be somebody who's single, it could be a couple, it could be somebody with kids. It's somebody chosen by the families, in conjunction with Cass, to be the advocate for that home. And so people are like, where are you going to find these folks? And it's not, the goal isn't we're not trying to attract everybody. We're trying to attract the right person, and so it's a mindset, it's a position of the heart, that there are people who are hardwired as caregivers, and it was always a way, trying to find a way to create a career path for people that are caregivers, instead of like thinking that, oh, they need to go into nursing or some other field that, this is where their heart is, that they could do it long term.
Yeah.
And then Family Plus is for folks that need true 24-hour care. These are folks with severe medical needs, high behavioral supports, just complex cases. And so in that model, the steward's more like a household manager, and so we would be having a very deep partnership with a Medicaid waiver provider to offer different kind of living arrangements. So we're not there yet. So our first 5 houses will be independent living, and then our 6th house will be our first family living home.
Yeah, and they're, I mean, again, man, it gives me chills, because it's changing so many lives, man, and the impact, like I said, is huge now, but long term, the impact for these people, it's just unbelievable.
We were just talking about that recently. It's the ripple effect. So yes, it is one structure, but it's within that structure you have 3 core members that their lives are changed.
Yeah.
Their parents' lives are changed. Their siblings are changed. Their church groups are changed, because they've been, or their neighbors, of always wondering what's going to happen to Joe. And it's like, here's Joe's home, and what I didn't like a lot of times is, under the current system is much more like an emergency response system rather than a proactive creation spot. And that's, Cass isn't set up as emergency response. It's long-term planning. And so where do you want your home? Who do you want to be living with? Who do you want your support, who the steward to be? And that can take time, and you can't rush that process.
No, and you're exactly right. And I like that. I like that about it, because you're not just going to take everybody, and because the floodgates are going to open, and then you're required to all kinds of other things that are just not right for your program. Hey, there's other programs out there which are great, but that's what makes this program so unique, is that it's handpicked. Who are we going to live in, and let this be long term. How do you decide? When I get, number one, like if your family or I'm going to live with somebody 24 hours a day, how do all the bills work? How does that get paid for? And then what kind of contract do people get signed up for? Is it 6 months, a year, 10 years? How does that work?
So because it's a single family home, there's 1 meter for the entire house. And so you've got 1 electric meter, 1 water bill, 1 gas, bill, and all that. So that gets billed to the organization, and then we prorate those monthly utilities based off of the number of people in the house. So we have a family of 5. There are the 3 guys, so we pay 5/8 of the water bill. We pay 5/8 of the electric bill. We pay 5/8, and then each of the guys pay 1/8 of those different services. But if it was, a single person as steward, then everybody would be paying a quarter. But so that all gets tied into Cass, and then those bills kind of go out. But it's a year lease. And so, if somebody, just like a traditional apartment, if somebody's not interested in the program anymore, they can leave. That's not the intent, but that's the basic structure of just a yearly lease.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful too. And what I thought was cool too, you were explaining to me how each individual, it's based on their social security or whatever the money is, because then
Yeah,
it doesn't like take away if they go out and get a part-time job, it doesn't take away
totally.
from that additional money. I thought that was super cool. I mean, that was a brilliant thought process to come up with that, because it rewards them still for continuing to work and getting a job and making more money. Let's talk a little bit about
Totally.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So typically a lot of like affordable housing programs will charge, 30% of their net income. So their employment income, their disability income, things like that. What we did was we've got a sliding scale fee between $400 and $800 a month for the independent living model. And that is just based off of their disability benefit, not including their employment income. And because we wanted to create a financial structure that encouraged people to work. Because if you're charging 30% of my net income, you're taking away, a third of every single hour that I work. And so
Yeah.
we wanted to create an incentive program rather than a de-incentive program.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant and super, super well done. And again, we're talking to David Buuck, and again, founder and executive director of CassHousing. Talk a little bit about, and I love telling these stories about the darkest times. You quit your job.
Yeah,
Talk about one of the toughest times that you had, because man, when you quit your job, it becomes real.
sure.
It's like jumping off a cliff and then hoping your parachute opens.
Yeah,
And you're going to fall, you're going to get your knees caught up, you're going to get
yeah.
scratched up and beat up. But talk a little bit about one of your extreme struggle. And the reason I want you to do this is because, again, this podcast is based on people that going for the goals and dreams and getting unstuck in life and understanding that when you go for it, it's not always going to be pretty. It's not going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not going to like everything's going to take off. So talk a little bit about some of your struggles and then how you came out of the struggles.
Yeah. So, I think that's a great segment because, everybody looks at the success today and thinks, oh, it was all rosy and golden and all that. And it's like, we got knocked around pretty heavy, especially early on. So I left my job in July of 2015, and fast forward about a year from then, after that. So we're, spring, summer of 2016. We just started fundraising. The organization did not have any money at that point. We did not have any kind of fundraising background whatsoever. And we had a significant board conflict. I mean, a major, major conflict of personality and of thought of how do we get this thing to move forward. And it was so contentious. And again, this was 2016. It was so contentious. I had my letter of resignation ready to go because it was just like, I don't believe in the way that this thing is moving forward. And I mean, I remember crying in the sunroom of a board member of just like, I can't, because again, the weight that I'm feeling is if this does not go, there's nothing for these families. And so, again, I just put a year into starting this, and it's going to die. And it was such a disappointment. And there was a small group of board members that said, maybe we're not the right group, as a startup board. And that group actually kind of led the discussion of rebooting the board of directors. And so we had a group of either 11 or 12, and it shrunk down to 4. We brought on 2 more, and then 2 dropped off. So of the original 12, we only had two of the original board members, and then 2 new ones came on. So, we went from 12 to 4. And that group and those 4 board members are still on the team today. and those four saved the organization. You know, they put their own money behind the organization. They put their contacts behind the organization, and it gave me the belief that, you know, we'll figure it out. And we were able to. And I mean, it was extremely slim pickings at the very beginning. And, you know, I you know, essentially had to pick up a few part-time jobs but it was always kind of this, how do we get to a point where I can work on this full time? And then it's like, all right, we got some grant money to be able to, so I could quit my other part-time jobs, and then, you know, just kind of steamroll from there.
Yeah, when your why is that real, I mean, there is no giving up. You know, you just got to
Can't,
find a
and
way.
it's, I mean, it's a true calling in that, you don't have a choice. I mean, it's going to chase you down one way or another. So it's, you
Yeah.
know, I say that CASS is not a faith-based organization, but I say it's a faith response, right? So there's a lot of different things tied into that for me. And I don't think I shared this with you when we got together, but you know, there's the footsteps story. Have you ever heard of the footsteps?
No.
No, all right. So there's the story is there's it's on a beach, and there's a set of two footprints, and a guy's walking with Jesus, and then it goes down from two sets of footprints to one, and the guy asks Jesus, and he says, well, you know, Lord, why is there only one set of footprints? You know, did you leave me there? And he's like, no, that's where I carried you through the tough times and
Oh,
all
that's
that,
cool.
right? So, and I always said, oh, that's such a nice story. That's not my story. That's not my faith journey. My faith journey is there's one set of footprints, and then there's this gash in the sand, and it's where Jesus is dragging me, saying, come on, you son of a gun.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's when I got to know these families, it's like, this is it. This is what I have to do. I feel that I've been called to this position, but it's at the same time, even though it's a lot of work, it's a lot of fun, and we're able to have, there's a lot of joy in it too. So
Yeah, there's no question. And, you know, and not for nothing, I'm just so proud of you for continuing to go, and so proud of the work you guys are doing. It really touched my heart, and I'm glad I had a chance just to meet Cameron only because, like I said, the impact that you've already made on just his life, and not only the other lives, the other guys there,
yeah.
and the lives you've impacted in your journey so far. It just, we need more people like you in society. When there's negative times going, we rely on people like you to continue to push through and see the positive side. Cheap plug, but it's true. It really is true. I mean, it's we need more people like you to help other people. It's so important now more than ever.
I think, I mean, you know, with, I don't know when this will air, but you know, right now or the day after tonight. Okay. I mean, this is the election, you know, and it's, it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter. Like, so there's you know, there's the Gandhi quote, you know, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my own Michael Scott edition, and it's, you know, be the change you want to see in the world because no one else cares. You know, like,
Exactly
I mean,
right, yeah.
like, and so it's like, you can't sit on the sidelines and play sideline or, you know, the day after Monday morning quarterback, or, you know, the only way that you can complain about an issue is if you're in the trenches.
100%.
You know,
100%.
and so, like, if you don't like the way that something's going, get involved, and then let's have that conversation.
I couldn't agree more. You're exactly right. And it's just a matter of, you know, going for those goals, going for those dreams, getting involved, put yourself out there. Don't care what anybody else says. You've got to be the light sometimes. And we all have the light within us. We just got to understand that, you know, what our journey is and why, and developing our why. It's so important. Again, talking to David Buuck, founder and executive director of CassHousing. David, I know you've heard the podcast before. With Andrew was on, it was great. But, you know, we always like to ask our 7 questions from John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. We're going to fire them up. Question number 1 is, what is the greatest lesson you've ever learned?
Greatest lesson? Oh, my goodness. I think it's so my grandmother had such a profound impact on my life. Um, and I think that it's just this opportunity that, you know, when you give of yourself, life becomes so much more fulfilling and rich. And it's like, you know, if you're just gonna, if the end goal is to retire with, you know, and drive off in your nice new M3 or whatever and drive off, and you know that's the end of the scene in the movie, um that's not a compelling life. Like I don't want to go see that movie. Like I want to go. Again, we only have one of these lives, and it's like, go wrestle and go make a difference. And
Yeah.
so I think that um just get involved. You know, whatever it is, I don't care what, just go try, go do anything. So
You know, when you were saying that, this is, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but this is what's going through my head when you were saying that. Sometimes when you do stuff for other people, it it holds you more accountable than you would for yourself, because
mm,
sometimes I don't want to do things. I don't want to, maybe I don't want to do a podcast tonight. Maybe I don't want to put this book out there. Maybe I don't want to do this or that.
yeah,
But because people are relying on me, I do it for them, and allows me. It's just like you just said. I'm getting dragged by all these people that I'm inspiring, that I'm holding accountable. And man, it's a two-way street. You got to get out there and do something, because if you don't, like you said, before you know it, it's going to be over. And then,
hmm,
you know, the thing I always talk about, worst place to be is on your deathbed, and just thinking to yourself, man, I wish I
what
would have.
if, right?
Yeah. And man, that's pretty scary. And it's, you know, now more than ever, you got to get started, because
Right.
as crazy as this world is, I mean, you can, it doesn't matter what you do now. It can't be any worse than
Right.
what's going on. You know,
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Don't say that, Jeremy.
Let's see. Question number 2 is, what are you learning now?
Oh man. You know, it's, people are people. And I mean, that sounds silly, but like, um, what's another way of, I mean, you can have all the best intentions and all the best ideas and the best structure, but at the end of the day, you can't force anybody to do anything. I mean, or it's the whole, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. Like,
Yeah.
and we can create this great program and things like that, but at the same time, like, um, you know, there's a heavy lift on the side of the families. And so, you know, we're trying to figure out, how do we walk alongside of them? Because even though, you know, Cass was started because families were saying, hey, we want something, we need something, and now it's becoming a reality, there's a lot of like trepidation of like, wait, now my kid's going to move out, you know? And it's like that,
Oh, sure.
how do we partner alongside families so that they're ready to make that transition? And again, it's that, in a lot of ways, it's easier when it's a dream, because you're not hurting anybody, or it's not, you know. But now we got to the point where, like, if Cass fails, it hurts people. Like, if it's just
Yeah.
a coffee house meeting or whatever, and it doesn't go anywhere, like, you know, rewind 6 years ago, it's like, oh well, that was a nice idea, you know. But
Yeah.
now it's like you said, the accountability is, we've got a lot of people looking at this thing, that we need to make something of it.
Absolutely. Question number 3 is, how has failure shaped your life?
uh Failure, so I have a love-hate relationship with failure, and I actually wrote a blog on it. And it was Kara Hackett with Input Fort Wayne, and she made the very interesting point, and I wanted to reference her, where um, the ability to embrace failure comes from a position of privilege.
Hmm.
And so, you know, as a white male, I can say, oh, I can run out of money and it'll be all right, you know. And
Sure.
it's like, a lot of people don't have that ability or that freedom to do that. And so, like, but at the same time, like, I want to embrace a culture that it's okay to fail. Now, there's a difference between mistakes and failure. Like mistakes are, I didn't do my due diligence. I was messy in the process. Failure is, I did all this and it still didn't work out.
Yeah.
That's great. We need to embrace failure. We can't embrace mistakes, but there's a fine line between those two. So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
but I mean,
Total sense.
I always tell my staff, like, if we have if they make I call it a 3-digit mistake. So, if they make a $500, like, all right, it's $500. Like, it's okay. It's a 4-digit mistake. Okay, that's a if it's a 5-digit mistake, what did I do wrong? Because I should have been involved in that discussion. Now, I'm the only one. I've made 5-digit mistakes. I've made extreme, and as a young organization, those hurt big time. And I mean, again, kind of rewinding, we went through a couple really tough learning curves, tough lessons, and it should have killed the organization, but here we are. So yeah, I embrace failure, but that doesn't mean that mistakes are good, so.
Totally. I totally get it. And that makes perfect sense the way you explained it. Because if you give everything and it doesn't work out, hey, okay, at least I gave everything. I understand now. But if you don't give everything, you're like, man, if I should have known better than this.
Yeah,
I should have done this different. And then it's
can't
just
be
different.
messy. You got to do the,
Can't be sloppy
homework.
for sure. You
Right.
can't be sloppy. Question number 4 is, who do you know that I should know?
Who do I know? I know a lot of people, Jeremy. I think it's a question of, what are things that you're looking to learn, or, I love to connect people, but it's more of the context of, where are you trying to?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. I am looking for the next year. I would like to speak 4 times on stage in front of a group. So, that's what I'm looking for. I just want an opportunity to share the message, share the positivity message, and I expect nothing in return. I'm not looking at getting paid or nothing. I just want to speak at an event and share positivity, share a message, because again, I feel like I have been giving a gift of gab that I can actually get out there and make an impact. I used to, because obviously you met me, I'm 5'2". I used to be, kind of ashamed of my height. I used to be, it was something that was always affecting me. But what I've learned is that it is actual blessing in disguise, because no one forgets me. So when I walk into a room, people know I walked into a room, and when I walk on a stage, people know I've walked on a stage, and I can make a big impact. And I've got this gift that I need to get out, and I need to speak in front of groups of troubled teenagers, troubled adults. Really anybody, but I want to speak in front of groups on a stage at some point. That's my goal for next year. I want 4 times. So
totally.
Introduce someone there.
Yeah, no, I've got a few different ideas, but I don't want to throw anybody under the bus in a
I get
public
it.
forum. So, but I've got a few different ideas brewing for you.
Yeah, like a fundraiser or something. I would love to speak at a fundraiser at some point. I think that would be awesome.
For sure.
Because again, obviously, I don't expect nothing in return. I just want the opportunity to help.
I should have done my homework, Jeremy, and came with the list of names for you. So that's
okay, hey, brother. Hey,
yeah.
I know where you live. It's all good. That's awesome. Question number 5 is, what have you read that I should read?
Oh man, what am I reading? So one of them was Henry Nouwen. So this is, I recommend this all the time. So Henry Nouwen was a Catholic priest, and he wrote a book called Return of the Prodigal Son. And Nouwen was a renowned speaker and anti-war advocate, and I mean, just a really fascinating guy, and got completely burnt out, and was really, really dark place, and encountered Rembrandt's painting of the Return of the Prodigal Son. And so you've got the father figure, and then the younger son kind of bowing before the father, and then kind of the older son in the background. And Nouwen's book goes through how everyone is the younger son, that we've kind of gone our own way and scorned people in the process. All people are the older son of, kind of this haughty, we've got our life together and it's your problem, and everybody else has got a problem except you. But then all people are called to be the father of a position of grace and forgiveness. And it's not too terribly long, but it's one of those books that I like to highlight and write, and I just stopped highlighting because I was just highlighting every page. So
Yeah.
I'm a Return of the Prodigal Son by Nouwen is a fantastic. And Nouwen actually lived in a community for adults with intellectual disabilities. That was actually how I was first introduced to the book. And so there is a direct connection between Nouwen and Cass. So
Perfect. I just finished up with Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and it's one of the most brilliant written books I've ever read in my entire life. If you get a chance to listen to that one, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, whatever. Oh my God, the book was so good. I mean, it's just so brilliant. It's just a great storyteller. It was, brilliantly written. So no wonder. You think it's just Michelle Obama's book and it's #1 everywhere. Yes, it is her book, but it's #1 everywhere because it's so brilliant.
It's a fire book, right?
It's just brilliantly written. Man, I love it. Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
What have I done? I think, it's that whole concept of living without regrets. So I'm a Cubs fan, so I got my W flag.
There's some regrets there, buddy.
Yeah. But I was actually able to go to Game 7 of the World Series. Nice. And it was that same concept of who knows when the next time they'll ever be in the World Series is. And my grandparents had passed away earlier in that year, and we had a small inheritance, and it was kind of allocated for retirement. And it's like, well, what do you do in retirement? You do your bucket list.
Correct.
Well, what's #1 on the bucket list but the Cubs in the World Series?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so my wife said, will you? I was kind of on the fence with going, and she said, well, will you regret not going? And I said, I don't think so. And she said, you need to go. And and so it's one of those things that there's just things that come onto your plate, and it's like, if you don't do this, you never know if you're going to get another opportunity. And so obviously you can't go to Game 7 of the World Series, but
yeah.
You could, but not the Cubs. But my board just recently, I think we talked about this, but my board granted me a month sabbatical. And my family, even though we're in the middle of COVID and everything, my family and I traveled out west for the first time, and we were able to, see Redwood National in Northern California, and had to kind of cut the trip short because of the wildfires. But, it truly was a trip of the lifetime, where to see national parks and national forests truly for the first time, and to have those moments where your breath is just taken away by the beauty of the country, was pretty special. So, if you ever get a chance for a cross-country trip or something like that, you should give it a shot.
Absolutely. I've done it a few times. I'm pretty good at moving. I lived in Northern California, lived up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which was beautiful. Yeah. But, I think the whole point of what you're saying there is that when opportunities come up, you just got to take them. You just got to go for it. And I don't care if it's a trip to Cedar Point, if it's a trip to Florida, if it's to an opportunity to be on a podcast. You just got to take these opportunities come into your life for a specific reason. And if you don't take advantage of them, like you just said, you may not get an opportunity to do it again. And then the bigger thing is you may not know what door that opens into some other area. And I think that's the most important thing for me, that I do things that most people say, why would you do that? Because I don't know what's on the other side of that door.
Truly.
It could be nothing. But man, if it is something and I miss it, I'll never know I missed it. I'm not living with that regret.
Yeah,
man. I just do it all.
It's this weird balance. So there's a book called Essentialism, and the idea of essentialism is, if you listed out 100 things would this thing make it in the top 10? And if the answer is no, don't do it.
Oh, there you go.
Right. And so like, there's this balance of like, I say yes to every meeting. Like, I mean, yeah, Jeremy Todd, who's this guy? Right.
Yeah,
And, you know,
exactly.
and then
Exactly.
it's, you know, but I have this, I take it, I say yes to every meeting, because you never know where that will go. But that is in my top 10 is just that opportunity to meet new people. So it is this balance of like saying yes, because you never know where that door is going to go. But at the same time, it's being incredibly intentional with your time, because they're not making any more time. You know, it's a limited resource, and when you're out kind of thing.
Yeah, that's big for me too, man. I talk about time wears people out. I mean, time is so important to me. If I give you my time, man, it's important. And if I don't have time, there's a reason why I don't have time,
Right.
because I'm busy, and I will get to you. And when I have that time, it's intentional.
It's yours. Right.
Yeah, I am dialed in. Let's go. Let's talk about it. And then when I'm done, I move on, and I'm spending
Right.
time with the next person, because again, man, it's such a finite number of days and time or minutes. And man, it's like that old what do you call that old hourglass that tips upside down, all the little
For sure.
grains of sand are pouring out, man. It's scary shit.
For sure.
Last question, David, and again, man, I appreciate you being on the show, but
Yeah.
how can I add value to you?
You know, I really appreciate the invitation for tonight, and it goes back to what we were just saying. Like, you never know who's going to hear the podcast. Is it a person whose family could benefit from Cass? Is it somebody that could be a supporter of Cass? You know, whether it's whether it's somebody that's interested, you know, in the trades. Is it somebody that has land? Is it somebody looking, you know, for a financial contribution? Is it just to reach out and say, hi, how can I help? You know, and it's, you never know where those conversations will go. And this organization exists because of that. Everybody is helping how they can. You know, you've got this great platform through the podcast, and you know, it's you know, we'll see who's live the night touches.
And then the beautiful thing about podcasting is that it may not be tonight. It may be 3 years ago when someone listens to it, because that's a beautiful thing. They go back and it's so weird. I'll get an email from somebody, hey, I heard your podcast from 3 years ago. I'm like, I don't remember what the hell it was, but I appreciate you listening. It's great.
Welcome to the past,
it's
future
great.
dweller. So.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I always talk to people why I do my podcast, and I do it because, well, several reasons. I do it obviously to help and get people unstuck in life. But if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, and my kids they grow up without me for 30 years, they can go back and listen to all these podcasts.
For sure.
Listen to my voice, listen to my ups, listen to my downs, listen to my authenticity, and listen to my friends that have been on the show. I mean, I consider you a good friend of mine. Awesome. It means a lot for you to be on the show, and I just want to help any way I possibly can. So for all the people out there listening that want to donate, that want to get involved, where do they find you and how do they find you, and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so best place to start is our website, CassHousing.org. They can reach out directly to me. My email address is david@CassHousing.org, CassHousing. So it's, you know, an email is a great way to start the conversation.
Yeah, check them out. Check out the website for sure. And man, did you have like virtual stuff on there that you can look at some of the houses, or was that just?
Yeah. So we've got like a 3D tour. We've got videos kind of highlighting some of our folks, highlighting our first home. So there's some good stuff.
Yeah, so definitely run over there, check out the website, and get involved. Like David just said, send them an email. It doesn't really matter if you're here locally. Just reach out to them, see how you can help. But really, no matter where you are in the world, I mean, these are programs that David he started. He knows what to do. He can help because again, when you have that passion and that desire to help people, it's not just people here. It's people everywhere. People everywhere around the world are struggling with these things, and this is a huge opportunity to give families a chance to have a life. And I don't want to say it in disrespectfully, but man, oh man, like, you know, my sister lived with my mom for the last 30 years. I don't know that if that's an opportunity for her. I don't know if that's an opportunity for anybody else out there listening, but man, it's very real. It makes so much sense. And if the system and the person and the family fits, this is a huge opportunity, and I would encourage everybody to reach out to David. So,
Thanks, Jeremy.
yeah, you bet, brother. For everybody around the world, hey, run over to the positive side podcast.com, get that $10 book, buy 2, give 1, keep 1 for yourself. Like I said, if you pre-order, I'll autograph all the books, and I don't know if that adds or subtracts from the value of the book. I have no idea yet, but it'll be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty awesome. And like and subscribe. Check me out on YouTube. All these interviews, I've recently started putting on the YouTube channel, so you can check them out there. And then obviously this will be on the Facebook page as well. But I say it on every single show, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You have greatness within. Like always, this is the positive side.